This one daily ritual has totally transformed my life and my creative practice, and it's totally free and only requires a notebook. Hi, I'm Alessia. I have been a full-time ceramic artist for the last 3 years, and I also make content sometimes. If you're interested in seeing more about my life as an artist and also just as an overly sensitive girly, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I've been thinking a lot lately about what feeds my creativity and how this time last year I was experiencing the worst burnout I'd ever experienced. I was living in Melbourne, working in a studio that was freezing cold, and I was miserably and incessantly homesick. At that time, I think I had subconsciously convinced myself that suffering was somehow necessary in order to make good art, and that if I fed into this trope of being a struggling artist, I would somehow emerge more profound and prolific at the end. But in reality, it just led to a perpetual cycle of more suffering, and my art also in turn suffered from it. But it did lead me to try a strange lot of experiments to try and get out of feeling burnt out, and I'm gonna share the one that stuck with me today. I should preface this by saying that I am absolutely awful at keeping a routine. I am the furthest person away from being someone that gets up at 5 a.m, goes for a 10K run, and has a green smoothie. I'm pretty disciplined when it comes to getting work done, but when it comes to self-care and those rituals, most just don't stick for more than a few days. But for some reason, journaling 3 pages of longhand writing in a journal every single day was a ritual that I very quickly started approaching with an almost religious-like devotion. The idea of morning pages isn't mine. It's actually from The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, which if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend. This book entirely changed my approach to my creative practice and so many other aspects in my life. To very loosely paraphrase, the general premise of the morning pages is to write 3 pages of stream of consciousness thought immediately after waking when your brain hasn't fully entered conscious state. The idea is that it is just a total brain dump. It doesn't need to be written well. It's just essentially dumping all of your fears, all of your anxieties, all of your thoughts on the page to make room for creative energy to flow throughout the day. There are no rules other than to write 3 pages, to write in the morning, and to write every single day. But the subject matter, the style, everything is totally up to you. I've always really struggled to thrive under any kind of rigid environment, and so the lack of restraint really quickly appealed to me. Some days I will write about my deepest, darkest fears and insecurities, and other days I will literally just write about what I have for breakfast. It's been around 12 months since I started journaling consistently, and I have noticed so many positive effects from doing this, not only creatively, but also in my personal life. One of the changes that I've noticed is that it has dramatically decreased the amount of time that ideas sit in my head to when I actually action them. I know a lot of people talk about the measure of success being this distance of time between like ideation and action, and I think writing my ideas down genuinely keeps me accountable because it's giving me an actual date right next to when I first came up with that concept. And if I'm continually coming back to these ideas, I think it's sort of telling me subconsciously and consciously that I need to action those things. I tend to be someone, like many creatives, who overthinks and overcooks their ideas for an indefinite amount of time before they actually do anything about them. I think we all get trapped in this kind of like dream state where we have decision paralysis before we've even started putting the first foot forward. I find when I'm writing about my ideas every day, I will literally get annoyed at myself if I have to continually write about the same thing without making any progress forward. But I also like how it's sort of capturing these fleeting ideas that I would otherwise forget because I'm specifically allocating time to actually write them down. Whereas half the time I will have so many ideas, and then if I'm not putting them down anywhere, they're just going to disappear. I think one of the biggest surprises as well is when you're forcing yourself to make time to actually sit down and write. New ideas you'll come up with because you're just allocating specific time to do nothing except for write. Shocked me like crazy. I think the most significant change that's brought about for me is something that Julia talks a lot about in this book, and it's the idea that creativity is not limited in nature. There's not a finite amount of it in the world, and only certain people have exclusive access to it. She continually talks about, and I genuinely have started believing now, it's this idea that creativity is totally unlimited in nature, and if we just allow it to flow through us, we can all create prolifically and with so much ease. Shifting this idea, I feel like, was really challenging and almost confronting at first because it sort of removes all of these excuses we give ourselves for not creating. But once I shifted that belief, I just unlocked so much potential. For me, as soon as I stopped acting like creativity was finite, it just started appearing all around me in abundance. Once I let go of this idea that creativity had to look a particular way or be so extremely refined every time I put something out, I honestly shifted my own beliefs about burnout. I'm not saying by any means you need to have a spiritual awakening or believe that creativity only comes from a divine source, but I think once I started shifting these limiting beliefs around creativity and expressing that on the page every single day and showing up and combating my own imposter syndrome, it genuinely unlocked everything for me. Like I said before, I've never been good with routine, and I've never really had the self-discipline to show up every single day to do something like this for myself previously. But showing up every day and writing in my journal has been a really nice way to start my day and ease myself into the day, but also start building routine and discipline around routine that I previously never had. I think for me, I started noticing the improvements in mental clarity and creativity quite quickly after I started journaling. So it wasn't like running or going to the gym where you don't see results for sometimes like months down the line. I think that's what really motivated me to kind of keep going with this momentum and really stick to it religiously. Because my journaling is so consistent now, it's actually allowed me to habit stack and build on some other habits to journaling. Like now I go for a walk every morning and then I have a coffee while I journal. And it's created this entire routine around journaling and starting the morning out so slow that genuinely I can't go past it now. Writing about my emotional state every single day has helped me become hyper aware of my feelings in a way that I don't think I really had ever experienced before. I find now I can identify more easily what I'm feeling and generally address the root cause of it more easily because I'm often writing about consistent themes, so I know what's actually going on in my life that might be contributing to these feelings. I know this might sound kind of dumb, but I feel like we often don't make time to actually explicitly analyze our own behaviors and what in our life might be making us feel particular ways. So carving out specific time, it's like almost sitting down for a little one-on-one therapy session with you and your journal. I find I'm less likely to get burnt out now because I'm more likely to identify when I actually need rest or to actually just identify what I need in general from my life. And like I said, maybe not every day I'll write something that is groundbreaking or honestly even important, and it might be 5% of what I write that actually ends up being sort of some kind of a breakthrough. But I think it's more just the practice of showing up consistently that teaches you so much about yourself and your creative practice, and it leads to those like huge breakthrough moments. Somehow I have filled 5 of these now and it is so satisfying seeing them all on my shelf. I like to use the Look Term A5 hardcover ruled journals. I just honestly like the way that they look and they feel, but you can use any notebook you like. It can be even something that you literally throw away or a piece of paper that you burn. It's more just a practice of actually getting the words out and allowing clarity to flow through because you've just had your little dump. I know in the Artist Way, Julia talks about not looking back on anything that you've ever written, but I do think after, 6 months or a year, it is kind of nice to flick through how you were feeling at a particular point in time and having the ability to really pinpoint down to the day, like what you were experiencing at that moment in your life. I thought it was really interesting in Patti Smith's book, Just Kids, how she actually draws from so many portions of her literal journal at the time that she's referencing. And I just think how cool would it be if you had a lifelong practice like that, where you could actually, 50 years down the track, draw from journal entries of your life at that exact moment in time. Anyway, that was my piece on journaling. I hope you learned something. Maybe you're inspired to pick up a pen. If you like this video and want to see more from me, please consider subscribing. I will be sharing lots more about my life as a full-time artist and little tips and tricks that I have learned over the past few years that can help support me along that journey. Okay, that's all from me today. Bye.